Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation, the MisFitNation Show. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
Welcome to our Veterans Day show. a part of our Veterans Week shows. This is our second night in a row of doing this. Last night we had U.S. Navy veteran Rob Diedrich. Tonight we have the Air Force, the Marines, and the Army on with two people. Our first guest, and first of all, I'd say we've made it another day without having to put up a memorial for one of our brothers in blue or our first responders. So good on our communities for the last 4 or 5 days now with not having to lose any of our first responders. Our guest tonight is a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Special Operations. He served 4 combat deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. His personal decorations include Bronze Stars, the Air Force Combat Action Medal, and 2018 Spirit of Hope Award. He has a best-selling book, Igniting Movements, empowers people to change the world for good. He is the president of SOF Missions and chairman of the Veteran Service Alliance. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Damon Friedman to the MisFitNation Show. Welcome, Dr. Damon.
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me on. Love your show. Grateful to be a part of it, especially on Veterans Day. It's a very special day for 20 million Americans who sign on the bottom line. Today, we should be thanking every veteran because it's because of them that we are free. We're the greatest nation in all of the world, and that's 100% a fact. Thanks a lot, brother.
Outstanding. Thanks for being able to find the time. I know you had an interview just before this on radio, and we were your next hit. I'm not sure how many more you did today, so I'm sure you're in high demand. I have a friend, Jason Lattery. He told me this is going to be a great episode with you. He said Damon is awesome, is what he told me. So I hope you live up to his hype and tell us a little more about you. I mean, I gave a 2-sentence thing about you. I know I didn't mention your Marine Corps background or anything else. So let's jump in and see a little more about you from as far back as you want to go to how we got to SOF Missions.
Well, anyway, first of all, I'm going to do a shout out for Jason Lattery because that guy that's a stud. All right. That Green Beret, man, he's got so many tools in his kit box, man. And he was just a great leader and just honored to be working with him right here in Tampa under the SOCOM umbrella, Special Operations Command. Anyhow, yeah, so served 20 years. I started off in the Marine Corps. People always ask me, why did I join the Marine Corps? Well, I'm going to tell you why. First of all, I joined the Marine Corps because I'm from downtown LA with no name, no money, no legacy, nothing. Raised in the projects. My mom was a single mom, worked for $4.25 an hour just to put rice and beans on the table. And let me just explain something. When we didn't have enough food, my country was there. When we didn't have a place to live, my country was there. And when it was time to get a degree, brother, I'm the first one to go to college in the United States of America.
Wow.
Right. And then from there, degree after degree, I just received so many opportunities and just super blessed. So I joined the Corps because I wanted to give back. I joined the Corps because I'm a patriot. I joined the Corps because I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. I joined the Corps because I wanted my life to be meaningful. So I served 5 years. My last unit was 2nd Force Recon. I just got pinged today. A guy, just a blast from the past 20 years ago, who went through my reconnaissance indoctrination program with me, Rip. He's like, Damon, is this you? Yeah, I have the same 910 number. It was just great just to hear from him. So after 5.5 years, I was part of the invasion. I learned a lot. And then I crossed over into the U.S. Air Force Special Warfare community as a combat control officer. It's a STO. And then served the last 15 years, ran into the likes of Jason Lattery. And all we did was hunt down high-value targets, capture kill missions. And here's the deal. It was the most extreme terrorist networks. These are bad people that would put bombs into schools, bad people that would put bombs in the marketplace, bad people, period. And so I'm just honored that I could serve for 20 years. And there's implications of my combat service. And I'm going to tell you right now, I sacrificed a lot. More to the show because that's the impetus of why we started SOF Missions, but just want to capture real quick, 20 years, multiple deployment. I deployed many more times. It's just those 4 are the ones that I talk about. Those are the 4 that really made an impact in my life. Those are the 4, the scars of war. Those are the 4 that, man, like I can never forget. But yeah, those are my 20 years on the dot. You know, it's my time to transition out into this crazy, weird world that we live in today.
Wow. How was that transition from going from the Corps into the Air Force, besides getting lobster and stuff in the Air Force?
Dude, that's fair. That's fair. You know, a long time ago, I remember I was in the Marine Corps, and I remember 2nd Force Recon. I had my gold wings on there, and I should just throw a picture your way. In fact, I've got my my Force Recon paddle right over here.
Nice.
The gold wings. And I remember this Air Force recruiter, and I'm in my dress blues, brother. And there's a swag about Marines.
Yes.
Right? Something just so sexy. And it doesn't matter how ugly you are. Honestly, you put the dress blues on, brother. Come on now. I'm one of the best looking people in the world, man. I'm wearing
my dress uniform that hasn't changed.
I know, but it's come on, man. It's the best uniform out there. Fact, right?
Right.
And so I remember just walking through the parking lot, and all of a sudden I heard an Air Force recruiter is like, "Hey, Marine," and I'm like, there's the swag, right? It's like, I was like, somebody just called up on me, right? I'm just sitting there. I'm like, who's talking to this devil dog? Air Force recruiter comes along. He's like, "Hey, you ever thought about joining the Air Force?" I was like, why would I want to join the chair force? Now, look, I crossed over, right? It's a joke. It's a joke. But, Marines, they think every department, every unit is substandard. It doesn't matter. SEALs, they stink, right? Rangers, they stink. Delta, who cares? Nobody needs them. Because if you want something destroyed and annihilated, you call the Marine Corps, and in 24 hours, it'll be gone. So, of course, I had my jokes. And then all of a sudden, I learned a little bit more about the Air Force Special Operations Command standing up and really putting some serious money. They were recruiting recon Marines, Rangers, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and many of us crossed over due to our combat experience. And then what we did was we specialized in that joint terminal attack control, like the air to ground interface. And then all of a sudden, boom, they hooked me up. And all of a sudden it was just like, boom, I went down deep that rabbit hole, man. And it was definitely an illustrious career. And I know I made an atomic impact in my own way in the United States military and for my country.
Definitely. And you got to see both sides of the fence. You got to see the grunt life in the Marines, and you got to see grunt life, really what you were doing in the Air Force. You were not just a guy in a TAC or I guess an op center controlling stuff. You were chewing dirt. I mean, you were not just sitting back and saying, "Hey, you might want to do this." You were out there, and you were in that sand, and in Afghanistan, in Iraq. Which one of those two theaters do you think was more strategically harder for you as a tactical air controller?
Yeah, as a JTAC, yeah. So Afghanistan, hands down. Yeah. Iraq was different. I know that in my first deployment as a joint terminal attack controller, JTAC, and just so that all you people out there, combat controllers are the most lethal weapon out in the battlefield. And somebody would say, "What do you mean?" I'm telling you right now that a combat controller can conduct massive destruction. You see a village, now it's gone, right? Because here's the deal. Even when I deployed in 2010, going into the Korengal Death Valley, arguably the most dangerous place in the whole world. If anybody's ever seen Restrepo, the Sundance Film Festival Award, if you haven't, you're missing out. It's an incredible documentary. I mean, grab your Coke, grab your popcorn or whatever. You're not getting up. You're not. And that's where I came in to go ahead and extract those soldiers out with the commander of all U.S. forces, General McChrystal, with 2 special forces teams and some very talented combat controllers coming in. And the reality is that combat controllers, they're responsible for the majority of kills in Iraq and Afghanistan. All you got to do is look it up. Controlling air power with precision is where it's at. Now, I also want to say combat control, and that pipeline's hard. It's like 3 years. If you're lucky, you get no injuries, no delays. It's 2.25, maybe 2.5. But it took me about 3 years. And the reality is that I was already, at Second Force Recon. I was already very qualified. I already deployed to Iraq. I was part of the invasion. Like I had my checks in the box, and they're saying we need to go ahead and we need to up you tier 1, tier 2 operative. And we got a lot of training, a multi-million-dollar weapon. But I also want to say one more thing. It's the toughest training that you're going to run into. A lot of people, they talk about Navy SEALs and stuff, combat control, pararescue, special tactics. You got to be a combat diver. The hardest school in the DoD, bottom line, there's nothing else more difficult than combat dive. None, right? You got military free fall. You got FAA air traffic controller. That is a very difficult school to get through. I don't care who it is. Just FAA air traffic controllers. That is a very, very difficult qualification to accomplish. And then fast forward, we're demolition experts. And then of course the joint terminal attack controller, where you're putting all of it together. I'm telling you, man, that to go green so that you could deploy, that's some tough business. Our men are very qualified. They're intellectual monsters. They're physical machines. and they're ready to be attached to any unit, SEALs, Green Berets, Delta, SEAL Team 6, and all sorts of other classified units. I'm telling you, they're savages, man. I'm telling you, they do some incredible work in special warfare.
Well, they do it not just special warfare; they do it for the regular ground pounders as well.
That's right.
I had plenty of them with me. That's why I always marked my my tours, because they would do the 4-month thing, and every 4 months I get a new team. So at the end of 4 months, I get the new team. Say, all right, I'm 8 months left. 8 months left. Hey, get the beer ready for us. We're coming home. And by the time that last team came in, you already know their cycle. They all work the same because they're one brotherhood, and you can trust them. I don't even have to really look at them. Hey, this is where we're at. We're point A, get B hit. All right, gotcha. Bam, that's it. I never had to worry about it. So that was something I always do. And my best friend was in J-Star, so I knew that he was up above me most times. And we're still, we still laugh about things now that where we were both coincidentally in the same spot at the same time. Nice.
Well, I want to tell you, brother, thank you for your service. It's quite a sacrifice. Anyone who signs on the bottom line, and to be completely transparent, I never think a special operator did more than anyone else, in any branch. Once you sign on the bottom line, you sacrifice, and every one of us have our own gifts, and we utilize them. Some of us can jump out of planes, and some of us can't. Some of us can be on the X, some of us can't. But I value every warrior that helped me, because in order for me to get on the X and execute the mission, we had communications, we had intelligence, we had supply, we had motor T, it goes on and on, armoring, like every one of them, to make sure that we're properly equipped. And I'm going to tell you right now, we had the best in the business in special tactics, no doubt about it, in special warfare.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And as you moved up, I'm sure you had to move away from the teams, of course. Was that a hard transition for you to move away from being right in the fight to move, I guess, like a step back or 2 steps back?
Yeah, so I love being in the trenches. Obviously, the majority of officers want to do the enlisted man's job. That's just a fact, right? We want to be team leaders forever. But if you're a good leader, it's important that you have the experience, so that when one day you command, you understand what your men and your women, nowadays are dealing with. And so for me, I was really lucky. I actually operated even all the way up to being a major. I was the mission commander for Afghanistan. I was the #1 in the air to ground. And I got more work as a major than I did as a captain, honestly. So, you also have to understand that back in the day in 2012, civilian casualties was very, very important, that we would not, that we would just eliminate any of it. And even to the point where the commander of U.S. forces, they're just like, all right, let's just bring this officer out. Really, our enlisted guys were just as good, if not better, than I was. In fact, many of them were much better. I definitely take a lot of pride in never prosecuting a target, and everything was righteous. No women, no children. Always did it. Made sure I triple checked. Made sure that every prosecution was a righteous one. And at the end of the day, I sleep well at night. Obviously, there's a lot that I saw that was traumatic, and it's something that I still deal with today. But then again, who will stand on that wall? Who will do it? 20 million veterans in America, and every one of them, I honor and respect. Not everyone served honorably, but you know what? Even the people that, check out and didn't have the best career, I at least respect them for signing on the bottom line, because many of them, many people in America will go, man, thank you for your service. I almost served. And that bothers me a little bit. It really does, because they didn't. And, they don't have to say that. And they go on to this long story, and it's just unnecessary. It's just, the reality is that there are people that served, and we should just thank them, appreciate them, and show them our appreciation. Don't just say something, but actually do something in support of it, which we should talk about a little bit more. Like, what do we really need to do as Americans to really support our veterans, besides saying thank you for your service? But we'll talk about that a little bit later.
And that's something I retired in 2015, and hearing a thank you for your service thing, mostly from people that think they just have to say it, and not really understanding why they're saying it.
Yeah.
That really would irk me. And I was, whatever, no problem. I just walk away.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even engage them. And now I look them in their eyes. No, thank you. Thank you so much. And what have you done for you?
Right.
What have you done for this? What have you done for that? But thank you for thanking me. And then I walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about SOF Missions. What led you to starting that, and what's your impact now with that as it grows?
So SOF Missions, SOF Missions is near and dear to my heart. It was actually established in 2010 in the heart of Afghanistan in Bagram.
Okay.
In 2011, actually 2011, when I redeployed, go back, rewind, pause, rewind. So 2010 was pinnacle for me. It was definitely a time. It was multiple deployments. It was my third combat deployment, and yes, and things were going crazy in my head. What a lot of people don't realize is that the signature injury of the war is not PTSD. It's mild traumatic brain injury, which is synonymous with concussions. So I was having a very difficult time trying to figure out what was going on in my head. Obviously, at this point, I'd seen enough. I've done enough. I've done the nation's bidding, and I was having some very difficult time dealing with my symptoms: nausea, headache, blurred vision, light sensitivity, not just flashbacks and nightmares and all the other stuff that comes with PTSD, but this MTBI stuff was rocking me. I come back from a deployment that was the mission of the lifetime for me with General McChrystal, commander of U.S. forces going into the Korengal Death Valley. If anybody out there, again, the Korengal Valley was a 2-kilometer kill box. We flew in, and that combat outpost was literally 75 meters wide, 150 meters long, and the majority was a helipad. Okay. I mean, They had the Rocky Gym. There's no running water. Like dudes were there for 10 months and they were just using, little water bottles for showering. That was the shower. Right. And so it was 7 days, disruption operation, 72 hours specifically, no sleep, engaging the enemy. And then when I came back, I'm going to tell you right now that I was having a very difficult time and I was struggling with suicidal ideations. I'm very open about it. We all know that over 20 veterans take their lives every single day. And I'm going to tell you right now, in the house that I'm in, not in the house that I'm in, but the house that I was in, I've struggled a few times. Took that Glock 19 out, loaded. And I'm going to tell you something for all the listeners out there. I understand why dudes do it. I know why dudes and the ladies do it. You just get to this point where you just want the pain to go away. Now, for everyone that's listening that can relate to me, it's also the most selfish thing that you could possibly do. It really is. I'm going to go back to the inception of SOF Missions, but really the core and the impetus of it all is the most important part. I'm sitting in my living room and just kind of, fast forward. Recently, one of a friend of mine, an acquaintance, he took his life and he left 3 daughters. And I'm going to ask a very important question. Okay. Who is going to walk those girls down the aisle?
Yep.
Who? So that's why I say it's the most selfish thing that you could possibly do. And so in my living room, right, I'm thinking, how will my son be raised? How will my daughter be raised? Yeah. And then in the midst, I'm not a religious person at all, but in the midst, I remember, I'm sitting there just kind of talking with the devil, right? And it's amazing what the devil likes to say. And all of a sudden in the midst, God shows up and he says, I have great plans for you.
Nice.
Plans to persevere, plans to win, not to lose, not for evil. And I remember that day. And you know what? I put the Glock away because I believe that voice. I believe that out of 8 billion people in the whole world, no matter how much pain, no matter how much agony, no matter how much turbulence, no matter how much consternation, no matter how much anxiety, depression, anger, rage, I know that there's great plans for me, right? And so I put the Glock away. And so there were some really incredible people that kind of embraced me. They knew I was struggling. And I went on this journey, this path of healing. It was great. And it was psychological. It was physical. It was social. It was spiritual. It was cognitive. It was the whole thing. And then after a year and a half, I woke up one day and I felt good. It was weird. I'm looking through the window and I'm like, I noticed birds. I noticed the trees. I noticed the sun. I noticed the clouds. I was like, what's going on? And then I got redeployed. So back to Bagram,
Right.
2011. I'm thinking, and I want you to know that I was on the verge of getting a divorce. I tell you, dude, that close.
Wow.
Right? That close. And I reconciled with my wife, and all of a sudden she's like, "You've changed." Well, that's because, God has a plan. And now I'm embracing the issues that I have. I was educated. I learned about what was going on, psychologically, physically, spiritually. And then I started getting treatments, and I started applying them. Whoa, isn't that crazy? Like, I just accepted, I'm accountable to myself. All of a sudden I start feeling good. Stop drinking, start sleeping, right? Stop messing with stuff that's going to destroy you and be self-destructive. Stop it, right? You have a choice. And all of a sudden I talked to my wife, and I go, what would it look like if we stood up a nonprofit? Because there's nothing out there like this, holistic, right? Like I keep talking about these domains, mind, body, soul. We're called to be social, and we've got this brain. And then all of a sudden I go, what if we stood up a nonprofit? And she was like, "You're crazy. Well, we don't know anything about nonprofits. We can learn. I'm a special operator. We'll figure it out." She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to do all the work." I'm like, maybe.
Well, yes.
And so then SOF Missions, that it was birthed in Afghanistan, in Bagram, as I'm kind of going out of the operational center, as the mission commander on multiple mission trips, on missions, executing targets, bad people, bad people, and then coming home. And so then we started the nonprofit, and boom, here we are today.
Wow, outstanding. I was probably up in Bagram when you started this. I was up in Bagram in February of 2011 for a security class, security level 2 class, so I can build the fob down in Kandahar at the same time. So,
oh, that's cool. Yeah, I was in Kandahar at that time too. I was flying in and out, did some missions straight out of it. I bet you we were on the fob at the same time. It's crazy. We start bringing it together, like on this day at this time. It's like, whoa, we probably were in the same operational center. If you think about it, man, I was coming in, that was pretty cool.
Passing the Starbucks.
That's right. I know, right? That's right.
Yeah, I was on the fob Wilson in Kandahar, and they sent me up there for the security class to learn how to build the fob I already built, and then go back down and rebuild it. So it was fun.
Yeah. I like Kandahar. It was better than Bagram.
There's a lot better weather.
Yeah, I know, right?
So I was there 10, 11, then 12. I was in Kunar up in Cop Fortress. So I'm sure you've seen some of that place as well.
Yeah, Kunar province. Yeah. I flew out of JBAD in 2010. I think it was April. It was, right out of there. Yeah.
Two completely different worlds from Kandahar to there, but people needed to be taken care of in both spots.
Yeah, JBAD, Kunar province. I'd rather take Kandahar and hang out there,
A way better area. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So you got the mission started, and you have a great crew that's with you. See on the website, plus an awesome board and advisory board.
Yeah.
It's going now a 10, 11 year old. Shoot, 14.
Yeah, 12 years now. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, math is hard. But
never do math in public, bro. You know that, Rich.
I seen the little negatives coming up. Oh, I just failed. Where do you see SOF Missions going from here? I mean, you've done this much so far. Where do you see it in the next 5 years?
Yeah. So just to kind of expound a little bit on SOF Missions and where we're headed. Right now, we at SOF Missions, we have 3 deliverables. It's the Be Resilient program, right? Our mission statement is that we empower warriors to find purpose and be resilient, right? Purpose. I'm going to begin with saying simply that the 2 most important days in your life, Rich, is the day you're born and the day you realize why. Right. The second is you have to be resilient to deal with the turbulence in life. That's the reality of the situation. Over 20 veterans take their lives every single day. It's not because of marital strife. It's not because of, financial difficulties. It's because many of them were unable to deal with the stress, the fire that was coming around the corner, right? And so they decide, they snap in half, and then they do this crime. I like to call it a crime. And because it's a crime against their family and their children and their father and mother and all that other jazz. But again, I still do understand why they do it, but it doesn't mean that it's okay. Anyway, with that being said, SOF Missions is the Be Resilient program. We have the education, Be Resilient training. Then we have the Be Resilient retreats, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. It serves a larger population. It's co-ed. And it really, it focuses on the physical pillar, and it's the gateway to our main deliverable, which is our Be Resilient clinic, which is a medical clinic. What happens? So we have warriors coming from all 50 states, predominantly in Florida. Governor DeSantis has made it so good for veterans to live in Florida, the most veteran-friendly state. And I'm not saying that because I'm in Florida. I'm saying that because it's the truth. And so we fly warriors in, we drive warriors in, 5 days of intensive, right? And then so for 5 days, you're literally seeing every healthcare practitioner that you could possibly imagine. Imagine just in 1 day, right? You see the head physician, you see a psychologist, you see a physical therapist, a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, a massage therapist. You see the spiritual mentor all in 1 day. If you're an NFL athlete, these things happen. If you're a person with a lot of money, these things happen. But the reality is that most veterans don't have that kind of money. You know, the average devil dog that was in Fallujah or a soldier in Marja, they don't get any of this stuff. So what we did was, when we first started, it was just for special operators. But then I expanded it to all MOSs, all branches, anybody that deals with trauma, we want to help them. And so it's 5 days. Then we figure out what's going on, and then we do a follow-on care plan for 1 complete year. All of it is free, from the travel, the hotel. Like we keep everyone at a resort. Wow. No excuse, bro. The hospital is a resort. Okay. Oh my God. I mean, we're talking about resort food, resort bed, resort atmosphere. You open up one of them places, like you see the most beautiful greens, golf. You may not even golf, but you'll be like, this is beautiful. All right. Lake and everything, serenity to the max. And then after that, then we just keep on going. So we've served over 3,000 veterans, over 300 specifically in that Be Resilient clinic, because it's kind of an inpatient. We're taking care of 80 to 100 veterans at any given time, throughout the year. And so that's our main deliverable. And what we want to do is we want to expand. Most importantly, we want to get our own center of excellence, right? What does that mean? Our own facility. That's a very serene environment, because it's very expensive to lease, the grounds of a resort or country club or anything like that. So that's what we're doing. We continue to expand, and we're doing retreats all over the state of Florida. We just opened it up. Our medical clinic is in Tampa. That's the headquarters where we're at. But we're doing retreats over at Exos, the NFL Physical Therapy Rehab Center. January, February, you'll have all the combine there. We do our retreats right over there. Wow. It's really exciting, man. Like, you got state-of-the-art, the best in the business, healthcare practitioners, head to toe. That's what we do. And God willing, we'll be expanding out to Colorado and to California in 2025, 2026. It's gonna be awesome.
That's amazing. That is awesome. I've had the opportunity to work out with Exos. They came up to St. Louis. I went there with the Wounded Warrior Project retreat. So I worked out with them, and I got to meet Todd Gurley there. So it was pretty awesome.
Oh, that's nice.
Their workout was pretty awesome for guys and gals that just got out, and some of the people that were a little further out. It was pretty rough for them, actually. But it was good to get that mindset back in that you can still do it.
That's right. That's the physical pillar is very, very important. I always tell people, in your mental health program, is physical fitness involved? We have to be active for many reasons. We really do. Being physically fit, not just psychologically fit, right? Spiritually fit, socially fit, cognitively fit. I mean, you got to be fit in order to continue to do the great work that God's called you to do. And because it goes beyond the uniform. It really does. The multicam uniform, the BDU, or whatever it is, the digital pattern, that does not define you. Every veteran that joined the military, I believe their purpose is to be a freedom fighter. And it's our responsibility to understand what's our next mission. So when I was done with the military after 20 years, I literally had a ceremony. I really did. It was during the pandemic, so nobody was around.
That's right.
So I could afford to do this on my own. It was in my closet. I took my multicam uniform off. Boom. And hanging in my closet was an all black suit, black shirt, black pants, black jacket, black boots, everything. And it was a spiritual ceremony for me, declaring that I'm not done fighting enemy. I'm not done fighting evil. So when I took that multicam uniform off, I was fighting against extreme terrorists. Now I'm handing off the mantle to the next generation.
Right.
There are good men and women out there. They're going to take this to the next level. I've done my bidding. I've done the nation's bidding. Now it's time to do something a little bit different, still under nation's bidding, but not under the DOD. So I put on that black suit, man. I'm telling you the whole thing, even a tie, bro, like John Wick, baby, just like John Wick. And then, and that was my formal act and saying, I'm no longer going to be fighting terrorists any longer. I mean, if I get called, I'm going to go. I still train. I still CrossFit. I do jujitsu. I'm still, the way of the gun. I'm still good. I'm ready to rock and roll. I just don't need to sustain any more injuries. I'm sure you can understand. You told me, you've had your bout with the enemy too, right? Yeah. Maybe the one day they got the best of you, but you still came back, right? Yes. But for me, like, the new enemy is suicide. It's crazy, man. We talk about this over and over again. Suicide, man, it's coming up the ranks, man. It's becoming, soon it will be one of the not only the top ways that people die, but it's becoming soon. It's the second leading cause. Last time I checked with the CDC, second leading cause between 11 and 33 was a few years ago. It's one of the leading causes for men, death, and definitely one of the leading causes for veterans to die. Yes. So this is a real enemy. There's an epidemic, and now it's my enemy. And every day I'm closing with and destroying that enemy, one life at a time. To date, by God's grace, and I'll have to knock on no wood, because I believe the commander of the universe, God, is in charge and he's leading the way. And for me, I thought, you know what? This is incredible statistic. Everything is evidence-based research. Everything that we're doing, man, everything is making an atomic impact. And to date, not one suicide that's gone through our program, not one. And I'm willing to go toe to toe. I'm willing to challenge any other program out there, because we've grabbed the best of everything and we packaged it into one. No bureaucracy, no politics, just efficacy, just the truth, and just moving fast and furious, saving one life at a time.
That's outstanding. And I would be honored if I can get down there and just check it out and hang out with you for that 5 days and watch what those warriors go through.
Rich, you should just come and be a warrior. I mean, if you're going to be here on Misfit Nation, if you're going to be out there and you're going to be, helping all the warriors out there, a space is for you, my friend. All you got to do, I'll coordinate it. We're going to arrange it. We'll fly you in. You don't have to observe it. Be part of the process, man. We're all trying to be the best version of ourselves. We really are. And man, there's no day that's super easy, but you know what? Every day that we fight and we win, dude, it's another victory, man. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what we talk about here a lot, is stacking victories. Every day we wake up is a victory, especially for guys like us who were out there doing that stuff for 2 decades of our lives.
Yeah.
Whether it's peacetime or wartime.
That's right.
A lot of turmoil on your body. The human body is not meant to do that for 20 years. You don't see professional football players play for 20 years. You don't see any professional athlete play for 20 years, maybe Nolan Ryan. But other than that, there's not many that make it 20. Right. We do.
That's right.
We have that dedication to duty, that dedication to our country, God, family, country, and
That's
do
right.
that stuff all the time. And it's a testament to our brotherhood and our sisterhood out there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's super important. Some of the guys that I do, that I glean from, like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, when you look at their program, it's holistic in nature. They have integrated medicine. They're really focused on the foods that they're eating. Their physical fitness regimen is very, very tight, man. I mean, they're just on point. And so in our organization, we replicate all of it. We really do. We have all of it. Our organization spends about $50,000 every clinic just for 5 days and 4 nights. And you know how many warriors we have? 10. That's it. We really spend a lot of time, money, and energy on one warrior at a time. It's the only way. It really is. I've already learned that if you just kind of like parcel out all of your resources, well, okay, you might be addressing some, but most likely not the issues. In order for us to really understand the warrior and the complexities, like the issues that they're dealing with, we need to have a team, and they're doing a full bumper to bumper. I don't know if you're into NASCAR. I'm not, but it's a great analogy. You into NASCAR? Okay.
Yes.
So, you got this space car traveling at 200, who knows how fast, right? I mean, 210, 215, 220. I mean, it's crazy, man. Yeah. But then the pit boss says, yo, it's time to come on in. And you got 2 kinds of drivers. You have the kind that listen to the pit boss, and the kind that don't. Right. And you know what happens? Pit boss tell you to come on in, man. And all of a sudden you don't. Your tire blows, engine blows. I mean, you run out of gas, something, and you lose, man. And when you lose big, okay? For us, we're the pit boss. We're telling you, hey, brother, sister, it's time to come on in. And we're going to do a bumper to bumper, man. We're going to clean that windshield, right? We're going to replace them tires. We'll put some fuel in. Make sure you got enough oil. Oh, snap. We're going to make sure that engine's doing good. And you know what? Check it out. You know, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and I know you ain't either, miss. All right? Right, Rich? But check it out. You know, maybe I'm like a 1975 Ferrari. And you know, if you take care of that Ferrari, man, like you do for real, you give it updates. You know, there's so much advanced technology out there, man. You can still have that car going 200 plus miles an hour. Okay. Right. So maybe I ain't as fast as I used to be, but I'm more efficient. And you know what? Still can be sexy, bro. All right. I polished this machine. And look, full disclosure. I've woken up in the hospital 3 different times.
Wow.
Okay. 3 different times. The last time was in 2019. I spent 3 months inpatient right here at Haley's Hospital, the #1 polytrauma center in America, if not the world. Okay. 9 months outpatient. Before that, 2017, when my body collapsed. All right. I'm going to tell you something, man. I know what it's like to feel like, man, I'm not in a good space. Okay. This is 7 years past 2010, 11, right? But I've been there before, and I understand the implications of combat, just like you, man. And the reality is that there is a better way, and that better way is holistic, and that's what we do. We get dudes sleeping again. We help them kind of rope back from all the alcohol that they're drinking. We get them off all their VA meds. We integrate functional medicine in it, and we show them the way on what is it like. As you get older, you're not as resilient. You're really not, right? You can't bounce back. When you were a kid, you fell on the floor. You'd be like, no problem. Now you fall on the floor. Dude, did you just break a hip? You know what I'm saying, man? I'm not kidding. It's like, I'm getting old, bro. You know what I mean?
I'm going to stay here a little bit. Just let me count some sheep or something. I'm good.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yo, I'm good. Right. You're limping away. I understand all that. And so does our crew. Awesome. So does our whole team. But we're really passionate about helping and save every life. But more importantly, not just so that you wake up one day and feel like you don't want to kill yourself. Many programs call that success. Many programs will say, oh, dude, look, I don't feel like killing myself anymore. Is that really a success? Because a month later, you may feel like doing it. Yep. The whole idea is we want you to be the best version of yourself. We want you to look at yourself in the face and feel like you're a Spartan again. And you know what? That's a long haul, man. It really is, but you can do it. I've been there, man. I've been there where I gained the weight. I feel disgusted with myself. I'm just kind of like limping along, and then one day it's like a good friend of mine was like, hey, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Remember that phrase?
Oh yeah.
And I had to like restart from the beginning. Get a reset, baby. Get a reset, man. And become that Spartan again. We're still the warriors inside, and we can still move with action and engage the enemy, whatever that looks like, so that we can, in confidence, figure out that new mission and actively continue to make an incredible impact in America.
Outstanding. 2 more things I want to talk to you about. You're executive producer of Surrender Only to One, and you're an author of Igniting Movements. Let's talk real quick on those 2.
Yeah. So Surrender Only to One. Yeah.
So, start with the book or the.
Yeah. I was waiting. I'm like, which one do you want to talk? So Surrender Only One. That was a part of a healing project for me. Able to raise about $1 million.
Wow.
To make this film with one of the top directors, producers. Man, the faith community really made a big impact. Pastor Jack Hibbs from Chino Hills, Greg Laurie from Harvest, and they really helped me out as I was, finding God, finding my purpose, and then figuring out these, the right treatments and modalities for my warriors. And then we ended up putting this film together. Director Dwight Thompson, phenomenal, and we won 6 national awards. And it's about creating awareness of the suicide epidemic. Great movie, and there's a message of hope in it. And that was a part I needed that. And to this very day, we use that film as the introduction. So for all of our warriors that come in, they watch the film. And the most important thing about it is They can see the journey of these warriors, where they started, and just the hell that they went through, only to find hope at the end. And so that's what Surrender Only to One is. Check it out. Again, 6 national awards. I'm very proud of it. And then, of course, my book. Part of the process of my education is I wanted to be a nonprofit leader. I studied a lot of movements in the world, social movements, disciple-making movements, all sorts of movements. And during my doctor program out in California, I wrote a dissertation on it specifically, and then I translated into, a book called Igniting Movements. And this is for anyone that's sick and tired of sitting back and wants to do something good for the world, right? This right here is a study of over 100 movements. You know what? This is the formula. This is the blueprint that you need. It's like, oh, wow, Damon, the book is amazing. Really, all I did was I compiled the research, packaged it together, developed a rubric, right? There's leaders and followers. There's ideological movement. It's what's inspiring followers to go, to the ends of the earth and back. It's very pragmatic as far as the organization, internal moving components on what is efficient. And then most importantly, the strategic output, connecting, communicating, contextualizing, all the things that you need right here, Igniting Movements. Highly recommend it. And it was an Amazon bestseller. Really honored to do it. Just go to damonfriedman.com. You'll be able to buy it, or Amazon. So it's pretty simple. And here's the deal. Any veteran out there that can't afford it, you let me know. Send me an email on damonfriedman.com. Say, hey man, I don't have $1 to my name, but I'd love your book. I'll go ahead and send it to them. That's how I feel about my veterans. And anybody that really wants to change the world for good, that's what this book is about. I have a podcast on the Real Life Network called The Damon Friedman Show, and I'm constantly interviewing people, just these nonprofit leaders and just individuals that are just changing the world for good. Inspired me. It's awesome. It's on the Real Life Network, also on my YouTube channel. And then a lot of personal reflections. I'm very transparent. I'm vulnerable, and just being real, because we need to be real. We really need to be real with people, because everybody thinks like you probably have all your crap together and you don't. Everyone thinks that I have my crap together and I don't. I'm still trying to figure out every single day. I'm like, all right, I got another day to live. I got to I got to be faithful with it, because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So Damon, before I let you go, I want you to give the audience 3 tips to start their day better tomorrow and maybe be more successful as they move forward in life.
So the first thing is how you start your morning is very important. Did you know that humans have 12,000 to 16,000 thoughts per day? There's all sorts of concepts, but just for the sake of just making a point, did you know that 90% of your thoughts are the same thoughts that you already thought earlier on? And 80% of them negative. So 8 out of every 10 thoughts is negative. So the first thing that I like to do is when I get up in the morning, man, I'm really focused on how am I going to stay positive? And here's the deal. Every day is a special day. It's a very important day. And the reality is that I'm really positive. So how you start your day is very important. Number 2, dream. Somewhere along the way, somebody stole our dreams, right? It's like, oh, I'm too old to do it. That's a lie. It's not true at all. As long as you have breath in your lungs, right, you could do anything. This is America. Right. So dream, and then start taking action to fulfill that dream. I'm just going to tell you, though, if you're a veteran out there, you were called, and you are called to be an unstoppable force for good. You've got homelessness. You got drug addiction, the fentanyl. You've got kids that are showing up on day 1 without any shoes, they don't have a backpack. They don't have supplies. They don't have nothing. And figure out which humanitarian mission you want, man. They're all there, man. I was that kid that showed up without my school supplies. I was the kid that showed up with shoes that were so old with holes in the, in my shoes and my jeans. Man, how about a kid? There's so much that we can do as veterans. So just remember, your purpose is to be a freedom fighter. Continue to fight for those that can't fight for themselves. Find your new mission. Mine is to fight suicide within the veteran and law enforcement and first responder community. I'm doing that. Even military contractors. What is yours? Find your new mission. Your purpose is still the same. You're a freedom fighter by God's grace. Find your new mission and engage and take action today. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I would recommend.
Damon, this has been awesome. Thank you. We can probably go on for hours and hours. Unfortunately, I have a second guest coming in, a Vietnam veteran. if you want to stick
Cool.
around and listen to him, or if you want to jump off, I'll get back with you about going to the BRC with you and hanging out down there with you and getting myself right so I can continue to help the Misfit Nation be right.
Hey, brother, all you got to do is just go to sofmissions.org and apply. For anybody out there that's struggling, just remember find a new tribe, find men, women that understand and relate, and we're part of it. So, hey, brother Rich, God bless you, and God bless everyone out there. If you're a veteran, I salute you. Thank you for serving the greatest nation in all the world. Godspeed. All right,
brother.
take it easy. Have an awesome day.
You too now. Good night.
All right, take care. All right, good night.
All right, that was an awesome chat with Dr. Damon Friedman. I'm pumped up after talking to him for the last 50 minutes, but we have another one coming right after this. We'll put a quick ad real quick and then reset and get him on here because this one's going to be just as good, if not better.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
All right. That was a great chat with Dr. Damon Friedman of SOF Missions, U.S. Air Force veteran, U.S. Marine Corps veteran. Now we're going to switch it up here. When we think of war heroes, we've had a lot on this show before. We might envision medals, parades, stoic faces. We really picture them in a stable, whispering to horses. We're penning novels about redemption. Now we have a decorated Vietnam combat veteran who is a recipient of the Distinguished Flying Cross and the Purple Heart. He's a civil rights champion and a horse whisperer extraordinaire. In his debut novel, The Horseman's Tale, it isn't just bridging gaps. He's galloping across them, reining in the wild mustangs of PTSD, social injustice, and personal trauma. So without further ado, let's welcome Tom Echols, Vietnam veteran and author, an extraordinary man. Welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Rich. It's a pleasure and an honor.
It's awesome to be on with you tonight. This is a first for us to do dual people at one time in one show. So this is awesome to have you. Thank you for agreeing to be on tonight, and your team having you sign up to be with us. That's awesome as well. Tell us a little more about you from as far back as you want to go to how we got here, and we'll get you going here and get your story out to the world.
Well, I'm part of that group of babies that were born after World War II, and we were brought up on war movies and heroes and John Wayne and the Flying Hellcats, that kind of thing. And so I always wanted to be a pilot, and had based on my family having served for many, many generations, this country in the military, as well as my personal views on patriotism and civic duty. When I was 18 years old, I was recruited as a senior in high school to apply for and go into flight training program, and what they called warrant officer flight training program, to become a helicopter pilot. So that was my first profession. I went to flight school and then took Cobra helicopter gunship training at Cobra Hall in Georgia, and was off to Vietnam in 1972. I spent most of 1972 in Vietnam.
Wow. So 72 in Vietnam. I was 2 years old at that time. So, but I think this was around the time I was sitting with my dad, and he would talk to me in 3, 4, 5, and we'd watch the little 13-inch TV and watch our heroes that were in Vietnam at that time. So I'm guessing you flew on a Huey, or what were you flying over there?
It's a AH-1G Cobra. It's a helicopter gunship. Two pilots and wings with rockets and guns and so forth. It's what's called an attack helicopter.
It's a beautiful, beautiful platform. It was still in use when I went to Iraq in 2003 and 4. It was called Super Cobra at that time, and the Marines used them a lot and helped us and saved our butt a lot with the Super Cobra. So I love that platform as well.
Yeah, when it comes to close air support, there's nothing better than a Cobra.
It's a gorgeous weapon with a propeller. So I liked it a lot. Was it your choice to go Army Aviation, or was that just something that fell into place?
Well, like I say, I was recruited. I'm not sure what the criteria was, but there were about a dozen of the boys from my senior class that were asked to come to a meeting, and there were three Army aviators there, and they talked about the program and how we could go in immediately, and so I think I was really the only one who left right after high school, but a few of my classmates followed me over the next year. And so by the time I finished flight school, which was about a year of training, well, initially I had to go through infantry training because it was a motivational exercise. If you flunked flight school, they gave you an M16 and sent you to Vietnam as a grunt. So, so I had about a year of flight school and a couple months of the Cobra training at Cobra Hall, and then left for Vietnam, where I was a Warrant Officer 1, very junior. I was 19 years old. So I started off as a co-pilot in a gun platoon at the 48th Assault Helicopter Company. Made a lot of good friends, and some of us, the two units I served with in Vietnam, F Troop 8th Cavalry and the 48th, have stayed friends for a lifetime after that.
That's awesome. Being a Vietnam vet, I know that when you guys came home, it was a lot different from when we came home from Guat and stuff like that. Tell us how your experience as a Vietnam veteran shaped what you became as you grew older.
Well, having served in combat, what I'm saying is, what we think it's like, based upon the movies and the war stories and all that, is not really what it's like, and it, for me, and I think for a lot of the pilots that, arrived there fresh from flight school and were in combat for the first time, it was a bit shocking, because it's hard to describe when, for example, in a Cobra gunship, I might fly 3 or 4 missions a day. All of those missions were contemplating, either shooting something or helping people who were being shot at, or, the potential for gunfire was there every day. And you really haven't, despite all the training, you haven't fully prepared yourself for the impact of that. And those who survive and do well, in that environment, also, learn to harden themselves emotionally, so that you're able to get past the fear and the grief and, the anxieties that sometimes disable other people.
Definitely. And I know when you guys came home, they didn't call it PTSD. They probably called it battle fatigue or shell shock, or whatever the term was back then, term that was coined back then. And then it kind of evolved into what we call post-traumatic stress disorder now. And I know you're a champion for trying to help people with mental health and PTSD. And that equine therapy is one of the best things for that, as well as many other outdoor things. How did you fall into the equestrian side of life, or was that something you did as a child as well?
Well, I started riding when I was very young. My parents taught me how to ride, and when I was like 2 or 3 years old, I was in the saddle, not by myself, but with my mother or my father. But probably by the time I was 4 or 5, I was on the horse and gone. So and this was in Western Pennsylvania, where you beautiful, hills and valley areas and a lot of forest areas. So just you're able to go out and ride for an extended period of time, and I've always loved horses. And throughout my life, whenever possible, I would ride. I still do. I ride every weekend when I'm, able to do so between the weather and my arthritis. So, yeah. At 72, there you start to have some impairments, that you have to just accommodate.
You got to start working around things a lot more than you had to when you were 22, 32, 42. So I'm sure it's going to get worse as I get older, as I'm and just hit the 50s marks a couple years ago, 54 now, 54 this month. And pain starts to feel a little different now as you get older. So you got to really take care of yourself as you move forward. Definitely.
Well, as a former Army, you realize that all that training about ignoring the pain and soldiering on comes in handy some days.
Yes. I'm okay. Deep down inside, you're not really feeling that awesome about yourself. And part of your work, how many people have you helped with the equine therapy?
Well, I mean, just the book I wrote, The Horseman's Tale, the character in the book, it's fiction.
Right.
And to make sure it stayed fiction, it wasn't an Army helicopter or gunship pilot from Vietnam. That's the main character. There's a Marine recon officer. But the character in my book has PTSD, and as the protagonist, the book describes, the aspects of equine therapy and written exposure therapy that, have been helpful to him. And much like the character in my book, I've had experience with both of those things. As I pointed out in the book, there are people who aren't familiar with horses who can, go and participate in an equine therapy program and get the benefits of it. But for me, because I grew up around horses, and I've had a working horse farm for decades now, I'm around horses all the time. So I get the equine therapy whether I need it or not. But the written exposure therapy, was something that I explored when there was a horse that I helped birth, and he lived to be 22 years old, and he died in my arms after 22 years. And we had a very special relationship. There's every once in a while, you become connected, with the horse, and you have an emotional bond and almost telepathic bond, where you can feel what each other are feeling, and sometimes sense what needs to be done. And horses, like somewhat like dogs, believe in unconditional love. They don't judge you. They, if you've been with them and they know you, they love you. It's like, I don't know if you have any dogs, but you go to work and you come back after 10 hours, and the dog it's like the happiest thing that ever happened to him that you've gotten home, and that's unconditional love. And for veterans especially, but for anybody who's suffering as the result of some trauma or loss, learning how to love and learning how to receive love is extremely important. As a veteran in combat, you reinforce training that you have when you first go into the Army, and I'm sure the Marines, and maybe not the Navy and the Air Force, but so certainly the Army and Marines, are very focused on training you to be able to move forward on the ground, complete your mission, regardless of fear, regardless of grief, regardless of, circumstances that might distract you. So you subordinate or subdue those emotions. And then later in life, the problem is that the PTSD aspect of it, the trauma and the trauma's effects have never been dealt with because you set them aside based upon your training. That's why PTSD for veterans is oftentimes different and sometimes more severe than people in civilian life that have suffered trauma and are having after effects from trauma. Because in civilian life, if somebody dies, you're taught the 7 steps of grief and counseled, and you're asked to be open to those feelings. Where in the combat arms, you're trained to ignore those feelings and move forward. So that I think, is the big distinction, and why a lot of times people think PTSD is something, that really only applies to combat veterans, but it doesn't. It applies to everybody. It just has a more of an impact because of our training.
Definitely. And in combat or outside of combat, when you say just suck it up or dig deeper, it becomes a lot harder for people when there's other noises in their heads. You talked about the dogs. I have 4 at home, and I get that unconditional love when I come in the house every day, and I get ripped up, I get scratched, I get jumped on, because even if I'm gone for 10 minutes just to go to the store down the street and come back, it's like I was gone forever and come back. Because it's like that squirrel mentality. They don't know how long I've been gone. It's always fun to come home. I try to make sure I have long sleeve shirts on so I don't bleed out before I get to my bedroom to change into work clothes.
All right.
It's always fun to come home and see that there's someone happy to see me. Because sometimes you do get your better half mad when you leave the house, and come home, you got to make up to that. But other than that, for the veterans that come home, I mean, your brothers and sisters over in Vietnam, I still see your cab hat behind you. It's awesome to still see it sitting there behind you and show that pride in what you did back then. And then still, you said earlier, you're still in contact with some of the brothers that you were flying with or in your unit. That's awesome. Do they get to come out and hang out with you on your farm?
Yeah, that happens on occasion, and we have reunions of both of those units every year. And the numbers in attendance get smaller every year, but it's just a real pleasure to have had those friends for, I guess it's 50 years now. 1972, so 52 years ago.
52 years, yeah.
A long time.
That's a long time to be brothers. I mean, to be brothers from other mothers and learn. You probably know more about each other than you did about your own family by that point, because the things you had to go through over there. And then as you both all have grown for the last 50 years, and like you said, you had to say goodbye to some of your brothers because we all get old and we all have an end date, and we just gotta show up on that day and do what we're supposed to do. But
well, I'm an artist, and in addition to writing this book, The Horseman's Tale, I do paintings. And one of the friends I had in flight school, and he was at the same base that I was at in Vietnam. We went to Vietnam at approximately the same time, even though he was in a different unit. He was in a VIP helicopter company, which took field grade officers and guests around, and they were looking at this and looking at that, and but he was shot down and was missing in action, and perhaps 30 years afterwards they found the crash site. And just by happenstance, I was reading in the Orlando newspaper about this helicopter crew that was recovered, because one of the people in the crew was from Orlando. Saw the name of my friend, and I realized, what happened, and I went to the funeral service at Arlington Cemetery, and really nobody was there because nobody knew. You know, after 30 years,
Right.
it's almost like they were forgotten. And so I did a painting called "Lest We Forget," which is hanging in the VA clinic at the Villages in Florida to commemorate that, because you know things like that to me are very important. You know, I was very fortunate, you know, to have gotten through the war and was able to get a good education and create business and career opportunities for myself. A lot of which was possible because of the discipline I learned in the Army. But you know, we have to remember that some of our brothers were not so fortunate, and some of them have been forgotten. And so that's what that painting was all about.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that they have it hanging in the VA clinic there so that all veterans can see it as they come in and maybe take that pause to say, yeah, I made it back, but a lot of my brothers and sisters did not. And lest we forget them, say their names as much as you can to keep their memory alive.
Yeah, because, you know, those are the ones that gave the ultimate sacrifice.
Exactly. And a lot of us, we went through stuff and we carried that on our shoulders and our heads for the rest of our lives, really. But they never had the chance to carry that burden on their heads or in their shoulders because they didn't come home. They didn't come home whole. So it's a whole different world for them and their families.
If you'd like, I'll send you a picture of the painting. You know?
Oh yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome. That'd be much appreciated.
So my novel, The Horseman's Tale, was written with a purpose, and it's about horses. It's true, and it's because horses for me have been a stepping stone in my life. You know, the work that I do with horses is enriching and healing and exciting, and it's also very athletic. But this story is in large part about a veteran, a retired Marine Corps officer who had a number of extremely traumatic experiences in his youth and in his military service that caused him to survive, to create an emotional callus to protect himself from those blows and from the pain. And in that, he began to lose his ability to love and be open with family and friends and with himself. So this is about his transformation, you know, from that to being a man who's learned how to accept who he is, forgive himself for those things that he had done that he thinks, you know, need atonement, and find his path back to reconciliation and redemption. And in a way, it's a return to innocence, you know, because, you know, sometimes with war and our service, we have to leave whatever concept of innocence we once had. We end up leaving it behind because it can't survive in that environment. But he finds his way back through love, through devotion, through consideration and kindness. So that the Horseman's Tale is the story of this veteran, and how through horses and his relationship working with horses, learning, you know, to be open and loving, he then, you know, learns how to apply that to the people in his life, to, you know, get a strong and vital relationship with his wife and his family, for example.
And I think that's a great message. And I like that you said that you changed it from a helicopter pilot to a Marine officer, Marine that was in war as well, and went through the horses helped him to survive and come out of it. I know I have a friend that has a thing called Two Ravens Foundation up here in just outside Clarksville, Tennessee, and that's their basis to do equine therapy for veterans as they go through the issues of mental health and PTSD, and they take them from learning how to care for them, approach them from the front, so they shoulder to shoulder, so they know that you're a friend, not a foe, and do all those things, brush them, clean them, and then learn to saddle them or bareback if you are that brave, and ride the horse. And I think it helps not just the person going through it, but also helps Reed as he helps them go through it. And I think you writing that book helped you, as well as you seeing other people with horses helps them as well.
Well, I did. The concept for the book was kind of interesting. I've been a writer, all my life, really. I won Best Article of the Year award in Army Aviation Digest in 1976, and when I was an instructor pilot at the Aviation Center after Vietnam, and TRADOC project officer. And just in July, in the Army Aviation Magazine, had an article published related to aviation simulation progress using simulators for training. And I've written articles, horse articles for magazines and legal and international journal articles. So I like to write, but this particular novel started off with a short story. I think I mentioned I had a horse that I had a very special relationship, and when he died, I was heartbroken, and I found that even though I had seen a lot of death in the course of my life, I really didn't know how to grieve properly, and it was disabling me. And I was familiar with journaling therapy or written exposure therapy. So I decided to sit down and write a story about my horse. His name was Shiloh. And it was a pretty good story, and it was very emotional. And a lot of my friends had said, you ought to turn that into a novel. But, a short story doesn't make a novel. A novel requires story structure and a plot and, the ability to fictionalize somewhat to keep, if you have 300 or 400 pages, getting somebody to find it interesting enough to go page by page by page and not want to put it down after just a few pages requires a little bit of drama. So what I did was, think about doing this novel, and I got a sort of an epiphany watching a news channel, and you may have seen these Camp Lejeune commercials on television.
Yeah.
So this was like a 2-year period of commercials all the time, because the government, through the base administration at Camp Lejeune, had concealed that there was water contamination on the base, and there were tens of thousands of Marines and their families that were, there for training or living there, and it had dramatic effects. I mean, birth defects, some of which caused death, cancers, Parkinson's disease, and I was sitting there in the evening, and I had my whiskey and my lazy boy, and I had my feet propped up, and this commercial comes on, and I thought to myself, if I found out from this commercial that 40 years ago or 50 years ago, I had a child that was born with birth defects and died because of something that they were concealing, or if one of my family members had cancer, or that kind of thing, I would just explode,
Right.
and be outraged. And that's when it came to me that this will be the context for the story, because, Colonel Montgomery's retired. He's there by himself. All the children are gone. His wife died of liver cancer just a year earlier. And he had a baby that was born at Camp Lejeune when he came back from Vietnam. And he moved his wife and his first son to the base with them. They had a baby that was severely birth defected and died. And he never knew the cause of it. But those those elements of grief were things that he was never able to deal with either. And so knowing what caused it was a trigger for his PTSD, and he just explodes. You know, he throws his whiskey glass at the television, the big screen television, and you know, then he starts to collect himself, and after he cleans up his mess, he gets some more whiskey and his laptop, and he sits down and just bows. He's, you know, because for the first time in his PTSD therapy, this journaling therapy that he participates in with the VA, for the first time, he knows what the trigger is for his explosion. And he vows to write until he runs out of words or whiskey. And it's a long night. But in the course of that night, in the course of that journal, you get to see the innermost aspects, the darkest corners of, and the fears and the you know, aspects of Colonel Montgomery that he would never tell anybody else. He's putting it down on paper for himself. You know, so it gives a lot of insight into one person's psychological condition, and it gives a lot of insight into how a person can work themselves through those kinds of problems. So that's what this book is about. It's not just about horses. It's about a veteran and his journey to reconciliation and redemption. And, you know, and the name is instructive. I don't know if you, I remember in high school, we had to study in literature, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Have you ever, you know?
I've heard of Canterbury Tales. Yes.
Yeah. So the Canterbury Tales were the first work of English fiction. And it's in Old English. You can barely understand it, you know. That's not English today, but what it was about was every night pilgrims agreed they were on a pilgrimage to Canterbury Cathedral where they would you know, receive a blessing that you know, sort of removed their sins, but they had to, you know, work towards that. And every night one of them would tell their story about, you know, what they'd done and why they were doing this and what they hoped to achieve. And the stories were very much tailored to deal with some of the social conditions of the time. Now, this is, you know, 600 years ago when, you know, some of these things, if you talked about them as if it were your statement, you could go to prison or be burned at the stake or whatever. But Chaucer, you know, was able to say a lot of things because when he made it a story, it's fiction. So he wasn't saying it. The barmaid was saying it, or you know, one of the, you know, these different characters would say things, you know, that were, you know, their ideas. So the similarity here is that we've always had, as a part of our human condition, you know, this desire at some point in our life to work through those things that you know, linger and cause pain and burden us with guilt or shame, and the ability to work through that is what this book is about. It's Colonel Montgomery's journey of reconciliation. So that's why I call it the Horseman's Tale, just like in Canterbury Tales.
It's outstanding, and I do have your book downstairs. It's in my queue it's a 2-back now for me to get in there and read it. So I will dive into it here probably within the next week or so as I finish the last 2 books before it, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it because it sounds like an amazing read and an amazing writing story. So you've done a lot of things in your life, and you probably are pretty humble about a lot of this stuff, besides being a Vietnam War veteran. You're also a lawyer and civil rights champion, along with being a writer and a horseman. We haven't even talked about your civil rights stuff. Tell me a little bit about your civil rights championship and your pro bono work as a lawyer.
Well, you know, I went into the Army because of my sense of civic duty.
Right.
And a part of that was I looked at the Vietnam War as service where many people don't remember what communist aggression was like across the world, and the communist governments very autocratic, and so I felt like we were holding the line for democracy and our way of life on the borders of where that aggression was taking place. So when I got back, that concept of service was a little bit battered for me because the social conditions that I came back to were disrespectful and disparaging of our military service. And I'm not saying everything that was done in Vietnam was correct, but I think that most of the soldiers that served there were there either for the right reason, if they volunteered, or they were forced to be there. So through the draft. So either way, they didn't deserve to be treated with disrespect for doing, what was their civic duty. But I also thought that rather than allow that to be an excuse, I should look at what's going on. And I was given the opportunity, unlike most of my contemporaries that were pilots, to stay on and be an instructor pilot. As the Vietnam War ended, I was there when all the American troops pulled out in January of '73. Most of the helicopter pilots were furloughed to, reserve or guard units. And, they went off to go to college and, do whatever, but they were no longer on active duty. I'm not sure why they asked me to stay on active duty. And I didn't really have a choice because I had a 6-year commitment from flight school. So, but I thought to myself, everybody else was getting out, but then it occurred to me, maybe it's better to stay in, right, and give myself time to decompress. And so I was at the Army Aviation Center at Fort Rucker, Alabama. It's called Fort Novacell. And I spent 4 years there and was able to get an education during that 4 years, as well as serve as an instructor pilot. But during that time, I also realized, Alabama in the 1960s and early 1970s was an area that was fraught with racism and discrimination. And even after the Civil Rights Act, they just refused to cooperate. North and Central Florida was not much different. So I was looking at that, and I thought to myself, the things that I went to Vietnam for, the idea of a better society, democracy, freedom, liberty, equality, justice, those things were things that I could serve right here at home. So I made that a part of my life at that point in time. And that's why I went to law school and became a lawyer, and for 30 some years was very active. Not my entire practice, because I had to earn a living, but I always had some significant pro bono activity that was underway. Wow. Pro bono is Latin for good.
Good, yes, for good. And it's great that you were that voice for those who did not have a voice, and were able to push forward things to get their rights and everything that was good for them to happen thanks to you. So that's awesome part.
And Rich, one of the things that soldiers know, sometimes that at least back then people didn't respect or appreciate, is that when you served together, you were serving with the people from all kinds of, their ethnic heritage, from all kinds of different countries, and people from different races. And, I came to realize that regardless of, the color of somebody's face or where they came from, when we were serving together as brothers, and we took care of each other. We fought together as a team. We respected one another. I say respected with air quotes because, as you know, young soldiers can be very humorously disrespectful.
100%.
But that feeling was more than just camaraderie. There was a feeling of fraternity, and so somebody that you would take a bullet for, is also somebody that if they were being discriminated against when you got back home, you should stand up and speak out for what's right.
Definitely. Do you still live close towards Fort Novosel now, or are you on the other side of Florida?
Well, I'm in the north central Florida. That's where my horse farm is in Ocala. And I go to Fort Novosel periodically. I was just up there a few months ago working with the Department of Simulation for this article. It was a great honor for me because my article back in the 1970s was talking about, it was entitled SFTS, which is Synthetic Flight Training Systems, the shape of things to come. So I was, my article was about what was going to happen in the future with this technology. And we were celebrating 100 years of Army simulation. And so with the Deputy Director of Simulation, I worked together on an article, talking about what we had actually achieved in that 50-year period. And almost everything that I predicted was correct. However, I have to confess, I realized that I was very inadequate because there was so much more that happened that I didn't predict. It's been tremendous what the technology of digital imaging and 3D graphics that are all made possible by our modern computing technology have created environments where in a simulator you can realistically recreate almost any kind of flight environment, including tactical environments. And think about how much, let's say you're a gunship pilot and you're leading a flight of 4 gunships to attack something, right? And there are different air defense systems and on the route. So you have your plane. You could actually fly that mission, with those air defenses and everything in place, and practice, getting to your target, completing the mission, and exiting. Now, when I was flying combat missions, I would say a third of the time we didn't know where we were really, because it's like, you're out in the mountains, they all look the same, and there's a river, is that the one? We didn't have GPSs, we didn't have, any of this technology, so the ability to plan a mission and have technology that tells you where you are, when you're there, what's next. It's sort of like if you some of the things you would use like maps, MapQuest, or Waze in a car. It makes such a big difference in your efficiency. So it was really a pleasure for me. And also Fort Novosel has a beautiful recreation area, and I had received the Purple Heart. And if you're a Purple Heart veteran, they have just a gorgeous 3-bedroom cabin on the lake that you can use. I think it's up to 2 weeks a year. Wow. I mean, you have to apply for it. So I stayed there and had a very good visit working on that article.
That's outstanding, and it's also outstanding that even after all those years since you first wrote your article, they're still calling you back to pick your brain and see what you wrote and how it came to fruition. And like you said, the advances now in technology are just so insane to me. If everything we thought was just science fiction as kids is now real, and it's crazy to see it come into play.
It's amazing. The and Fort Novosel is very much the same as it was. A lot of helicopters, a lot of airplanes, Tremendous amount of training going on. And when I was an instructor pilot there, Mike Novosel was like a legend. He was a warrant officer who received a Congressional Medal of Honor for flying a number of combat rescue missions, rescuing I forget how many people from a very dangerous situation, and so we all looked up to him. I was a chief warrant officer when I got to Fort Rucker. It was called Fort Rucker as an instructor, but I was still, I think, 21 years old. So
Baby.
yeah. Chief Novosel was like in his 40s, which was old for us.
It's like grandpa. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome that you were actually able to know the history of the name, because a lot of people, when these names are changed, like, who is that? Where'd that come from? Why is this? Because they don't put out a lot of it. They did not put out a lot of information on why the bases were changed to certain names. And unless you knew the why behind it, you had to really do research. So it's good that you know that and the why behind it.
Yeah, it's the Army Aviation Center, and I couldn't think of anything more appropriate than to name it after one of the greatest Army aviators.
Right.
And I mean, he was widely respected. His heroism and devotion to duty and professionalism were truly remarkable.
And to stay in as long as he did, you say he was 40 when you got to be there at the same time. So that's a long career for an aviator in any time. So
I think he served over 30 years.
Wow.
Before he retired. And what was interesting is he was a lieutenant colonel. I think it was a lieutenant colonel, a major or lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and they had a reduction in force, and he went to the Army and came on as a warrant officer.
Wow.
And then they tried to get him to go back to being a colonel or something, and he said no. I'm a chief warrant officer, and I'm going to stay that way.
And as a chief, you can fly the whole time. Once you get a higher in officer ranks, you can't fly anymore.
It's all paperwork.
Right. You just become the button pusher. Yeah. So it's probably a better lifestyle that he was used to. So I guess that's a plus for him. So Tom, what advice would you give this generation that we have coming up now of warriors that are in the military? What advice would you give to them as they start their careers, or where they're leaving high school and college and thinking about joining the military? What would you tell them as a reason why to serve and what to do while serving?
Well, much of the things that I've accomplished in my life, and these are some varied activities that I've done over the years, have been because as a first consideration, I try to think of where I can make a difference, where I can do some good, where I can be of help. I went into the Army and to Vietnam because I believe that, as a young man and as a citizen, it was my opportunity not just to serve, but to make a difference. Especially at that time when so many people were refusing service, were rejecting concepts of patriotism and citizens' duty, but it comes down to the idea that through service and making a difference, you not only enrich the lives of others, but you enrich your life. So my suggestion is, and it doesn't have to relate to the military, because these opportunities are in front of all of us all the time. But if you see something where you have a talent, where you can contribute, you can help people, where you can make a difference, then do it. And I believe that with that attitude, you can have a very rich and interesting life. And the second aspect of this is a lot of the things that I've done in life are things that I didn't know how to do when I decided to do them. So when you embark on something that is new, there's always the potential for failure. Like as a painter, I decided I wanted to paint. I had some ideas about paintings that I wanted to do. Like I told you about the Lest We Forget painting, which is a very well done, well-crafted painting. But when I first started trying to paint, it looked like a bad cartoon, and that's the way it is. And when you embark on some new project, you have to learn and you have to grow, and you also have to, be prepared to accept rejection and failure in order to make progress. But be open. If you're inspired to do something, don't let the fear of failure get in your way, because all failure is a lesson on the road to success. So whether it's military service or education or some, business that you want to start, or you want to write a book or do a painting or help in a community activity, these are all opportunities for success and growth. And don't be afraid to move forward.
Outstanding. That's great advice for the Misfit Nation. Tom, thank you for taking some of your time tonight. I know it's on 9:40 there on the East Coast. It's 8:40 here in Central Time Zone. I'm in Tennessee, just probably straight north of Fort Norvell, actually. But it's been great chatting with you and learning about your history from Vietnam, through all the great things you did after. And a lot of us think that we're only defined by what we did in service, but you can be defined by everything you've done since service. So thank you for everything you have done and will continue to do while you're still getting up every morning like we are and pushing that, fighting the good fight.
Well, thank you, Rich, for the great job you're doing with this program. Do you mind if I ask a question? Where are you at in Tennessee?
Clarksville, right outside Fort Campbell.
Oh, okay. I have some of my equals ancestors got land grants after the Revolutionary War. There was the Revolutionary War veterans. They were given some land in a place called Bethpage, Tennessee, and so they settled there, I guess, in the early 1800s with those Revolutionary War land grants, and I'm a big lover of Tennessee, but Bethpage hasn't changed much since the early 1800s. It's like a lot of woods and valleys, and very beautiful place.
Outstanding. Probably one stop sign. So that's awesome. Well, Tom, anyway, you have a great night, and thank you again for joining us for our Veterans Week shows.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was an honor.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Got a question about your VA benefits, healthcare, or eligibility? Go to va.gov, where you can access a new interactive chatbot to ask questions 24/7. One can still browse the
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation Show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.